2021 meeting, City of Raleigh Appearance Commission. My name is Corey Bates, and I'm the chair of the commission. The Raleigh Appearance Commission is a public body appointed by the City Council that exercises both advisory, quasi-judicial functions. The Appearance Commission's responsibilities relate to zoning, other land use matters, as well as the visual quality and aesthetic characteristics of the city. We will consider the items on today's agenda in order in which they appear on the agenda. The first two items on today's agenda are requests for design alternates from the city's Unified Development Ordinance. When hearing requests for design alternates, the Appearance Commission sits as a quasi-judicial body and conducts as a quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing on the request. The process for hearing quasi-judicial requests is governed by state law and the city's UDO. I'm going to turn it over to our attorney to explain the process for hearing these items tonight. Ms. Catherine Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Bates. My name is Catherine Hill. I'm the attorney for the Raleigh Appearance Commission. The Appearance Commission will now conduct the quasi-judicial evidentiary hearings on the request for design alternates from the UDO. Under the UDO, these are heard again by the Appearance Commission acting as a quasi-judicial body. The Appearance Commission will act as a type of court that assures the due process rights of the parties are protected. Since today's meeting will be conducted remotely, in addition to the general quasi-judicial rules, today's hearing will also be conducted in accordance with the state statutes that allow for evidentiary hearings during the current COVID-19 states of emergency to be held remotely. So I'm going to quickly summarize the procedures and requirements before we start. First, all witnesses must be sworn in. Because of the remote format, individuals who sign up to participate, as well as the city participants, have already signed a written oath form, and their oath will be reaffirmed on the record as they testify today. All participants have also already provided written consent to today's remote meeting platform. So you'll begin with the staff presentation. A member of Urban Design Center will introduce the request. Since these requests are transportation related, a staff member from the transportation department is also here to provide background information regarding the request. As a reminder to the commission, the standards that the applicant must meet to be granted the design alternate are in the UDO. Those standards are also set forth in the staff report and the application. The standard will be discussed by staff and the applicant throughout the hearing. The burden is on the applicant to provide competent material and substantial evidence as to each of the required standards to be granted the design alternate request. So following staff's presentation, the applicant will be acknowledged to present their case and witnesses. Following the applicant, any opponents will be given the opportunity to speak in opposition, and the applicant will then have the option for a rebuttal and closing statements. When all testimony is complete, you will close the evidentiary hearing and the commission will deliberate and vote. As a reminder again to the commission members, because you are hearing these cases virtually, under state law, you either have to be on camera, so have your camera on when you're speaking or voting, or you have to state your name every time before you speak or vote. So obviously keeping your camera on is easier, but just don't forget to state your name before you speak or vote if your camera is off. Following the meeting, the commission's decision will be prepared with written findings of fact and conclusions of law, and that decision will be incorporated into the meeting minutes and adopted at the time that the meeting minutes are adopted. So with all that, I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Bates, for the evidentiary hearings.
Thank you, Catherine. So we'll now start the hearing. So evidentiary hearing number one was 901 St. Albans Drive, the Reserve at North Hills, LLC is the property owner. It's design alternate DA 4-2021. I believe this evidentiary hearing was continued from the April 1st, the May 5th, and the June 3rd commission meetings to today's meeting. The applicant's attorney informed staff ahead of today's meeting that the applicant would like to continue the evidentiary hearing on this matter to the next Appearance Commission quasi-judicial meeting in August. The applicant's attorney is present today, so we will start from hearing from the applicant's attorney regarding their continuance request. So Ms. Jennifer Ashton is the attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Jennifer Ashton from Longleaf Law Partners. I'm here today on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Chair, you summarized our request pretty well there. We are continuing to work with staff to come up with a solution for this project. City staff has been very helpful to date. They had a meeting with an adjoining property owner towards the end of June to try to work out a solution that may resolve this design alternate request. Unfortunately, we have not had a chance to touch base with city staff since that meeting or to work out like a final solution.
21 Appearance Commission meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
So evidentiary hearing number 2 is 540 St. Albans Drive. Property owner is St. Albans LLC. It's design alternate DA 10-2021. I will go ahead and swear in the staff this time. Read the oath to each one individually. So Carter Pettibone, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Kevin Kidd, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Bradley Kimbrell, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I don't think we have Bradley on. I think it's just Kevin from Transportation today.
Okay, great. And I believe we have, let me go ahead and swear in the participants as well at this time. When I call your name, if you'd please state your name and address for the record, and then I will reaffirm your oath. So I believe we have 3. Molly Stewart, I don't believe you need to do that, right? Because you're an attorney.
That's my understanding.
Dylan Pitts,
Dylan Pitts, 3508 Apache Drive, Raleigh.
thank you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And Gray Harrell,
Gray Harrell, 2801 Claremont Road, Raleigh.
thank you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Okay, so at this time, we'll go ahead and hear the staff presentation. I believe Carter, if you'd like to start off.
Thank you. Okay. The request DA 10-21, the applicant, it's 540 St. Albans Drive. The applicant requests 2 design alternates as follows. 1, complete relief from the requirement of section 8.3.5.8.3 of the UDO, requiring that on-site parking areas be designed to allow vehicles to enter and exit the parking area in a forward motion. And all as well as to permit entrance loading dock via backing motion. And number 2, a 15-foot design alternate to section 9.5 of the Raleigh Street Design Manual, reducing the minimum 100-foot distance required between a driveway and the nearest intersection to 85 feet in order to construct a approximately 482,000 square foot mixed-use development on a little over 2-acre property zone planned development located at 540 St. Albans Drive. This is probably not an extremely accurate aerial photo because there's a lot going on in that area. But in terms of the zoning, I did mention this planned development district. And here are the showings for the section of the UDO, as well as the showings for the Raleigh Street Design Manual. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding it. Kevin Kidd with the Department of Transportation is also here as well to answer any questions.
Any questions from the commission at this time for staff? Kevin, would you like to add anything? Or are you good with?
Staff doesn't have any comment to offer. We've met with Molly's team, and if you have any specific questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, being none, we'll go ahead and hear from the applicant, Ms. Molly Stewart. if you'd like to proceed with the presentation and calling your witnesses. A reminder, your application exhibits were provided ahead of the meeting and are in board docs, so please ask to admit into record as needed.
Thank you, Chair Bates. Molly Stewart, Morningstar Law Group. And absolutely, I would like to request that our application materials as well as our slides be admitted to the record. I'd like to skip ahead to my 4th slide if we could. Carter has gone through this. That's the one. Perfect. Thank you. All right, so you heard what the 2 requests are. And the first, you may be getting used to by now, the forward motion requirement related to the loading dock. And you see that there. I'd actually like to go forward one more slide, please, to zoom in a little bit. So this is a typical urban style loading dock. As you're well aware, there are 2 primary styles of loading docks. This is the urban version where the trucks back in and then pull out forward. And then, of course, there's the more suburban style that you might find behind a big box store or behind a strip shopping center, where it's more wide open. It takes a lot more space, but those trucks are able to enter and exit in a forward motion in that configuration. And so we find ourselves, whenever we're in a more urban environment, making this request. And so the request here is to not have that suburban style loading dock, but to do the urban style with the backing in and then the pulling out. And to go through very quickly some of the standards, because the answers are very similar. As far as meeting the intent of the sections of the UDO to have a safe and efficient and convenient vehicular and pedestrian access, we think that this, chooses the right model for this area. There are obviously trade-offs between those 2 models, but as far as in this urban area, providing for that safety, efficiency, and convenience, we think not devoting all that space to a suburban style loading dock is the right answer to not have to devote that space. Additionally, the design alternate is not here increasing congestion or compromising safety. As you saw in Carter's presentation, this is not only in an urban area, but this is sort of off to the side. This is the side of the building facing a single loaded street, that church at North Hill Street that backs right up to 440. So there's nothing on the other side of the street there. So not a great danger happening here. The design alternate does not conflict with any approved or built roadway construction plans, and it's reasonable due to 3 of the 4 possible uses or possible reasons, which are that given the existing physical environment, the compliance is not physically feasible, and that relates back to that urban style development that you see here at North Hills. Compliance would not meaningfully improve connectivity, simply not super relevant to the loading dock area. And then the compliance is not compatible with adjacent uses, again, because of that urban character. So to leave that topic and move on to the second request. The second request is for the distance between that loading dock and the right-of-way. And the relevant number that you see on your screen there is that 85.9. That is the actual planned distance. And the reason for that, you can see just to the left of the loading area there, and that is an intended patio for outdoor seating, perhaps a restaurant use, that sort of thing. And so it just pushes that loading dock a little bit toward Hardymont, which is coming in there on the right-hand side of your screen. And again, just based on the character of the street, we feel this is a very low impact request. For one, it's a relatively minor reduction, and then of course you've got the single loaded street bringing lower traffic, and of course this being the loading dock, this is not an entrance to the parking garage. Even the traffic that is coming around trying to get into that loading dock is quite minimal. And to go through again quickly those standards about meeting the intent of the UDO in this section. The articles, again, are trying to find the safe, efficient, convenient access, and actually having these active uses on the first floor and moving over a little bit to make room for them will actually be a traffic calming measure to have those active uses. The design alternate does not increase congestion or compromise safety due to the reasons I've mentioned as far as how the street is being used and the number of access points that it's serving. Additionally, Church at North Hill Street has a 30 mile per hour design speed. and of course that lack of facing structures. So a lot of reasons to feel that this is a particularly safe location for this request. The design alternate does not create additional maintenance responsibilities, was designed and certified by a professional engineer, does not affect stormwater in any way, and these are simply not applicable. And then, of course, the burdens of compliance is not reasonable given the size or intensity of the development, given the public policy reasons to prefer to have that active use on the first floor rather than to devote the entire frontage to that loading area. So with that, I think these are fairly straightforward requests, but obviously I am available for questions, and you heard as well that Ray Harrell, the project engineer from McAdams, is here and available for questions, as well as Dylan Pitts from Kane Realty. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Does the commission have any questions this time? For the applicant?
I just wanted to get a little more clarity on why the loading entrance couldn't be moved at least 100 feet away from that intersection. I mean, I heard you talk about the patio, but just wanted to get a little more clarity on what I don't know if it's a hardship or what the design issue is with moving the loading dock down a little bit.
Certainly, and absolutely, as you well stated, this is a design alternate, so it's really sort of a weighing question. It's not a true hardship question. It is about making that patio useful and taking away that additional 15 feet of the patio would sort of reduce it below kind of critical mass here. If you are looking for further detail, I would suggest that we open the floor to Gray Harrell with McAdams, or perhaps that answers your question.
I think it would be nice to see a little bit more building to understand. Just seeing a small little portion of it here. At least I am.
If we could go back one slide, it zooms out a little bit.
I had a question as well.
Go ahead.
So you were saying that the trucks are going to be backing into there up Churchill Street. Are they like semi trucks or just like smaller trucks?
My understanding is this is an office building, so you wouldn't see that kind of semi traffic. But Gray, if you're available to address the kind of trucks that we would figure.
Yes, this is primary for like trash pickup. So it'll be off hours, handled by a third party trash vendor. And it'll be more than likely a rear load truck that'll back in, pick the compactor up and take the receptacle away.
Okay.
Do we have a diagram that shows a little bit more of the surroundings, and so we better understand the street? Church at North Hill Street is a small road, but how it intersects with St. Albans and that area.
Sure, we could go back one slide past two. Yeah, I think two shows it best. And actually, I believe Carter had an even better slide on this. So perhaps turning to his presentation.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an elevation in the plan set at all, but that would be interesting.
So maybe I can kind of speak, I guess, to this slide. Obviously, the Tower 5, our building is near that red square. Part of the project is extending the infrastructure of Hardy Mott, as you can see, is north of St. Albans. That runs down along that red frontage exactly right there. And then Church at North Hill Street connects, and it makes that T intersection. And then speaking a little bit to the driveway spacing, we, like Molly said, we want to activate that patio. But Church at North Hill Street, it does have a pretty significant grade on it along the frontage. We're around like 5 to 6% slope falling from this plan west to east. So if we did move that driveway to be in compliance, within that 100 feet, it does make the building grade a little funky and a little harder to make work on the back end. So that with that active use is like our desire to have it at that 86 foot spacing. and most of the, or all of the passenger vehicle enters to, you can see on the left of that red square, that's where the parking deck that services this office tower. So all of your passenger cars will enter over there. You can see that's the deck, and then we're extending the deck between the existing deck and that red square right there. So that's the phase 2 of the deck that's currently under construction, and that's where all the passengers will service the building at.
Could you go back to the plan view, the original plan view? Yeah, okay. So are you saying that this loading area is only, the plan is only to have off hours trash service enter this loading area?
Yes, that's correct. We don't have a use nailed down yet or a tenant, but I would anticipate just by the size of the office, like once or twice a week, they would go in and, empty the receptacles.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
But then this would also be tenant move-in loading as well, right?
Initially, I guess with larger furniture and whatnot, when the tenant initially moves in, yes, that's correct. But then you can see where it says existing lot 2 on the left. That's where all of the everyday traffic enters and exits the Tower 5.
Hey guys, Dylan Pitts here. I just wanted to chime in real quick on a couple of the topics we've hit. Yeah, so this loading area is designed predominantly for trash pickup. It'll also serve the office tenants as well during move-in. As it relates to the location of the loading, as Gray mentioned, it has to do with aligning with the correct grade at the street and also aligning to the floor elevation. There's significant grade on this site. There's almost 20 feet between the road side of the building and the north side of the building, which you're seeing at the top of the screen. And the building also backs directly up to a stream. You can actually see the buffer, the edge of the buffer coming into play, the north side of the building under where the arrow key is as well. So it's pretty tight site. We've worked pretty tirelessly with our designers to come up with the best location for the loading. The location of the loading also has to do with the main core of elevators coming down to the center of the building and trying to give enough room for trucks to back in so that they're off the sidewalk and don't get hampered by the elevators coming down through the middle of the building. Yeah, I think, and we also elected, as Gray mentioned, to forego an entrance into the building parking deck from this lot and are working on a creative solution to get cars into the deck through the adjacent lot. So we're not creating more driveway entrances that are near the intersection.
Thank you for that clarification.
Another question. So on initial move-in, there will be like semi trucks and things like that coming in, bringing in like large like furniture and things like that for the facility.
I'm not sure what the definition of a semi truck is, but there'll be large trucks that can have furniture in them to load and drop off furniture and things like that.
There is a service elevator inside the building, we're assuming, off the loading dock, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so we would assume that would be the case, that there would be temporarily a semi truck or something that would move in, right?
Maybe a question for Dylan might be best to answer. I recognize that church at North Hill Street right now has pretty limited traffic on it. As North Hills continues to grow east, and I'm looking at the plan, let's see, drawing C2.00, that indicates phases 3 and 5 that continue on, is the intention that Church would continue to be extended, kind of paralleling the Beltline?
That's correct.
Is there a truck turn template on any of these plans? Did you run one for that, backing into that loading dock so we can see what it looks like?
We do not have a truck turn template on this presentation, but we have run trash service truck templates to prove that they can get in the loading area.
Okay. So your turn template shows it not interfering with any of those other lanes or curb and gutter or anything like that?
Yeah. Yes, and I guess just to provide a little more insight on that, part of like our administrative site plan approval process is like if this goes well today, we have to get buy-out from Shane Taper, who basically blesses our trash pickup plan for the city. So that's a condition of ASR approval, is we have to prove that you can service this building with a trash truck.
And I think what Bernard's getting at is if you all are designing to the trash truck size, do we know that there are other vehicles that are bigger, that are more associated with move-in or something like that, that might be bigger than that trying to get in there?
So the trash truck will work, like smaller box trucks work, but the large tractor trailers like the WB65s that you see on the interstates, it's like with their turning radius and the sheer length of it, it's like physically impossible to get it into the deck. Like it's too long. It has too big of a turning radius. Like you could not make it work.
Okay. So in that case, those trucks would just have to find a different way to load to get.
That's correct. Yeah. I guess there's no scenario on this lot that we could get a tractor trailer in and out of it with the grade changes and just with the sheer size of the lot.
And just to add some clarity here, when we sign leases for buildings, we have landlord conditions that dictate the type of trucks and that are allowed to be used for loading and at what times they need to come in, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. And you would have these here for this one, that are those in place, or I guess those would come in place later?
Yeah. My concern was just with having a tractor trailer have to stop right on that main drag or even on St. Albans to, offload. That was just my thought.
Okay, well, thanks for clarifying.
And last question from me, Dylan. In those landlord restrictions that you talk about, it is clarified in there that the smaller box truck type deliveries would be necessary.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Right, if there's no other questions from the commission, I believe there's nobody signed up. Additional support, and there's nobody signed up for the opponent. So I'll ask staff if they have anything further to add at this time.
I do not, but again, if there's any follow-up needed from any of the questions that were posed, I'll be glad to answer anything you have.
Same here.
Because I work in like the freight industry, and that was my concern with the trucks, because like although they might have stipulations for the tenants, they don't like if a tractor trailer company is coming to drop something off, they're not really bound to the lease. So that was just my concern with that. Like they have like a lot of freight companies that do deliveries as well to commercial locations.
that directed to us or to staff or? Just
I,
in general?
I was just saying that, you know, to you guys, because that's just my concern, you know,
Yeah.
because I see it a lot, to where, you know, you have trucks like just parking in the middle of the street, and they're, you know, the guy's trying to offload his freight in the middle of the road. You know, it's kind of a dangerous situation.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I mean, we certainly do our best to mitigate that happening. You know, but if something like that, I mean, if a truck like that does pull up, even a turnaround design, I don't think could accommodate a truck that big, unless we significantly decrease the size of our building to accommodate a turnaround.
Thank you. Okay, so being no additional opponents, we've asked staff. I'll ask the applicant, have any closing statements you'd like to close the hearing with?
Sure. And this is Molly Stewart. I very much appreciate the comments and concerns that we've heard, and certainly as we continue to work through site plan, we'll have to think about how to work with those. Some of them are certainly larger questions than we have here. You know, the loading dock accommodates the size truck that it accommodates, and so we're just hoping to avoid that kind of large suburban style loading dock. Thank you.
Thank you. Commission, have any last questions before we close the evidentiary hearing? Do one. Okay, so we're going to close the evidentiary hearing and open for commission deliberation. Would you like to give any thoughts? Start us off. Carter, can we go ahead and put the plan back up so we can kind of see the site as possible? I guess I have a question for Catherine. We have two different requests in front of us. Do those need to be voted on separately or together, or does it matter?
It's up to you. I was actually just looking at that. I believe you can vote on them together or separate. It depends on whoever makes the motion, how they do it. One thing though, I was looking at the required findings are different for the two different requests because they're from different sections of the UDO. That doesn't really matter for purposes of voting, but if you wanted to consider them separately, you could. It's really up to you and how you want to, how somebody wants to make the motion, how you guys want to consider it.
Thank you.
I can start off just saying, I think we're going to see more and more of these as the North Hills and downtown Raleigh core develop. I don't know if there's any way we can like ask for more. I feel like we're always asking for more, but I just, I don't, separate from what we decided to do, I just wish there was like an elevation so we could see that grade change, because I know there is a lot, and that would really kind of send it home like, oh yeah, this is like the only place to put this loading dock, and sight lines between the intersections so we can see if there are any sightline conflicts at the corner of the building there.
Yeah, I agree with that, Adam, and you know, I appreciate what they've done in incorporating some of that patio space. Yeah, I think we need more of it in some areas. I would maybe question how pleasant of an experience it would be, just with the proximity to the Beltline, you know, being right there. But I think the encouragement of the outdoor, you know, seating is a good thing.
And I do agree that pulling it farther away from the kind of your main amenity space, your outdoor area, the nice little plaza they've got going on, is a nice thing to do. The speed of the road, and really there's no opportunity to do anything across the street construction wise. I don't necessarily have a problem in this circumstance. I think if there was more opportunity to do the same thing across the street, I would maybe second guess it a little bit more. I think with this location, I don't necessarily see a huge issue with that placement.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the fact that we know there's nothing going to be developed on the other side of on the other side of Church at North Hill Street is a big deal.
Any other feedback, thoughts, comments? Ideally, I love to see loading docks in the backsides of buildings where we don't see it from the belt line or seeing too much of it, but the way that this is being built out, and it is, you know, even though it is suburban, it is a little bit becoming urban, so I get it. I think with the being what the primary use is, and knowing that the loading dock is not a deep dock that is going to be receiving semi-traffic several times a day or several times a week, it's just really a trash pickup for the majority of the time.
Yeah, and it looks like they're doing something interesting where they're, you know, the back of house, what would traditionally be the back of house where you would have that loading is actually an amenity with that stream and the forest there. And so I'd much rather see that exist and then put the loading out there facing 440 if there's something really valuable going on the backside, which it seems like there is.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, Chris, I haven't heard much, buddy. Usually they're the ones that start us off. Calling you out.
No, it's all good conversation. All
So
appropriate comments. Yeah, I mean, I personally, I don't think I've got an issue with either one of these requests, especially not the one about, you know, backing into the parking area being a loading dock that's going to be used infrequently. So really, to me, it's about the distance away from the intersection or from the property line. And I don't know that another 14 feet for a loading dock that's going to be used fairly infrequently is that big of an issue, to tell you the truth. Staff may disagree with me on that one. And I agree with Adam. I want to see the other side. The side facing the woods and the stream, I think that's going to be beautiful. And I would much rather see the loading dock on this side of the building.
I'll second that it would be nice to see, really looking at elevations, it would be nice to kind of get a better understanding of the overall, and that's kind of what I was getting at earlier, you know, future presentations. Nice to just see it a little bit more overall to better understand. You know, people working on this project understand where Church and North Hill Street is and how it's extending. The general public maybe is not. It's a relatively new road that's being extended for these buildings, so it'd be better to understand that site plan. That being said, if there's no other discussion, we're looking at two alternates, the forward motion requirement and the distance to the loading dock. I would suggest that we approve both together as outlined. The findings that are presented before us today. I guess that's my motion.
A second.
So is your motion is to vote on the two, to approve both of them? You
Correct.
might want to actually, I know I said you might want to vote separately. I mean, you can do it that way too. But since if there are people are concerned about one or the other, or maybe everybody just wants to vote together, it's up to you.
I'll ask if there's any discussion with, or any issue with voting on them together from the commission. You have a motion and a second. If there's any discussion or any concern about that, would like to do it separately, I'm happy to separate the motions.
I motion to do it together.
Do it the other way,
Yeah, you can do them together. It's fine.
together.
I think together is fine.
That just means we got to look at all the findings together, right? That's just two lists of findings.
We don't need to look at findings for evidentiary for these hearings.
Oh, okay.
Well, technically you do. That's your standard that you're voting on.
Well, you have to look at the findings that were presented before us. We don't need to look at the findings like we typically do, and find actual findings. Typically,
well, technically you do. When the decision is written down afterwards, you don't have to say it all out loud at this moment, but the decision will be written into findings of fact and then conclusions of law afterwards. If you wanted to go through the findings, you definitely can do that. But you also can vote to just approve as well. It's really up to how you guys want to structure your discussion. But the findings are the basis for your decision. It has to be based on those standards and the findings that each of those standards have been met.
And I believe that the findings were presented before us today and they were met. So the question was that both of these be approved together, findings that were before us today.
I'll second.
Who was the second?
Marcus.
Okay, I'm not able to see everybody. Marcus gave us a second. So do we want to do a roll call vote? Is there somebody that can do a roll call vote?
Your clerk today is Marilyn. Marilyn, I don't know if are you able to do a roll call vote? I also have the commissioners' names written down there in the meeting if you need that list.
I can do it. I have them listed down from the list you sent earlier this week.
Great.
So go through. Corey Bates.
Yes.
Megan Beach.
Yes.
Martha Eberle.
Yes.
Great. Will Gaskins.
Yes.
Patrice Gilmore.
I believe she's out today.
Okay, great. Thank you. Catherine Hogan.
Yes.
Jake Levitas.
Yes.
Okay. Corey Mason.
Yes.
Chris Roberts.
Yes.
Bernard Thaxton.
Yes.
Marcus Tuttle.
Yes.
And Adam Walters.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's a unanimous vote in favor. Yeah, figure out where I am. I think that was it for today, right? So now thank you, and that ends the business portion of our meeting. We will continue with other business at this time. So where do we want to start? We had last meeting, we had some discussion on our membership quorum for quasi judicial hearings. We want to just briefly summarize steps if you would like to do that, Carter.
Sure, I can do it. I know that a number of the members were here at the last meeting, and for the folks that weren't, I had earlier this week sent a kind of synopsis of that as well as the presentation. I could kind of share just a brief update, and I guess we could talk, or if you've got questions, I'm happy to answer them. Should be up now. Okay. At the last meeting, Ken Bowers, a deputy director, had presented a rather exhaustive presentation, give a lot of information, but I've kind of got a number of those pages still in here. We talked about how the commission was formed in the 70s and got to build its membership up to 15 members, and its duties had changed over the years, kind of depending on the council makeup and direction from council. But in its most recent iteration, and I'm not sure if anybody, maybe Candace was around when they were part of the site plan process, but with the new UDO, the commission moved to reviewing administrative alternates as their primary role in that process. But now, which does have 15 members, and per the bylaws, the quorum is 1/3, which generally works out to be 5 members. You are very unique among city boards, as you are pretty much all working professionals in the field that you're dealing with. You don't have any quote lay people, and kind of over the last 5 years, your attendance has averaged around 10, and this has really been sufficient and adequate for the stuff you were doing in an advisory role, and whenever you look at site plans or whenever you looked at administrative alternates, it was just fine. And then in last year, kind of like really thrust upon you by council, you took over the role of looking at design alternates with the quasi judicial function. And I got to say that I've been working with you for a number of years, and I think you've done a great job taking on this new role and adjusting to that change and kind of rolling with it. The design alternates, as I mentioned, were changed to go from the Board of Adjustment to your commission. And this would basically is a greater bar for quorum. And this requires 8 members to approve one. And so if you have 8 members, you have to have unanimous votes from the commission. And this has kind of been problematic at a few meetings that we've had because of the membership on the call. And, we were 8 or 9. We had one case that asked to be postponed because we only had 8 members at the time. So this has been kind of an issue, and you are a large commission compared to the other commissions in the city. So kind of in a nutshell, staff looked at the other commissions that deal with quasi-judicial decisions like the Board of Adjustment and the RHDC, and they operate both with a smaller number of folks, and they also use alternate members. So they've got a certain number of regular members, and that constitutes the quorum that needs to be met. And then they have alternate members that fill in when absences or when someone is conflicted out. So typically those alternate members do attend the meetings and participate in the discussions, but it's generally basically the regular members are the ones who vote. And so we looked at some options, including essentially just reducing the size of the commission, and this would generally be through attrition. Another one would be using alternate members like those other commissions, and then third would be kind of like the RHDC and creating a specific committee just to look at those quasi-judicial cases. But I think staff's recommendation was looking at a combination or a 1 and 2. But it was pretty clear from the discussion in the last meeting that you did not want to reduce your actual complete size of the commission. So the consensus was to look at alternate members, and numbers that were brought forth or talked about were having 9 regular members and 6 alternate members. And this would actually, with 9 regular members, you would be back to your quorum of 5, like you have for your non-quasi-judicial matters. So with that direction, staff kind of put the wheels in motion. That first step, the first thing to do would be actually to change the text of the UDO that specifies 15 members. So it's actually rather a fairly small change in the code, but does require a text change. So Yes, city staff is going forward this coming Tuesday with a request for a text change authorization. So that will basically start the process. And then while that is going on, which will take a few months, working with David York and bringing that forward, the commission would look to update its bylaws, which also specifies 15 members. And the updating the bylaws is something that we identified as something that we need to do regardless because of some other sections of that. So Catherine, over the next month or so, will be working hard to make those edits and then bring those back to y'all. I think we're looking at first meeting in August to look at, and if you want some more time to look at it, we can introduce that in August 5th, and then again look at it on August 19th, that second meeting in August. Another thing to tackle would be to decide how you want to kind of divvy up the voting alternate members. We could put it all on Corey if we wanted to, but I think he doesn't want that. We do want to maintain that requirement that the commission have a majority of members who are in design fields or have interest in or working in that to keep that percentage that's required as part of the state statutes. And then once you have a recommendation or decide on that as a commission and have a draft of the bylaws to present to council after a text change would occur, we'd bring those bylaws and recommendation on the 9 and 6 to council for, because they would need to vote on it to establish that as they appoint members to the commission. So those are really the next steps. Then with the direction we heard from the last meeting, I'm happy to answer questions. One couple of questions that were raised at the last meeting, the effect on going back in person for meetings, and this will be the last virtual meeting that we will hold. The direction with council going back into in person, and Board of Adjustment this month will be in person. Would be we're moving towards that direction. So the next meeting that we have will, be in person in council chambers. I'm happy to answer questions, or if you just got questions about kind of the next few months, myself, Corey, if Catherine can answer any questions, I think we can rely on her for some of the legal, quasi-judicial questions.
Yeah, a return to in-person means that you can stop some of these additional we've been doing, which might actually feel a little bit odd not having the sign-up list and all of that ahead of time, but that was what was normal before COVID. So I'll be there with you to walk through it the first time you do it in person.
Thank you for that. And harder squash my buzz about going back. Someone will let everybody. No, I'm just saying. I think we decided last meeting that we said that everybody would need to be in person. That we can't have some people online and some people. That everybody will need to be there. Counted. So that's great. It's exciting. I'm excited to see everybody back.
Oh, and one thing I did forget to mention, and this was kind of brought pretty clear at the last meeting, that the matters that come before you for the non-quasi-judicial things, you wanted the whole commission to look at. So I think we want to structure that through your bylaws to be able to do that. The planning commission uses a concept called committee of the whole, where they've got their whole commission as part of that committee, and for them it's not as formal, but I think we want to work on that with David and Catherine. And another thing would be that I think where the direction that you're heading is you have a quasi-judicial meeting, or those matters would be held at your first meeting of the month. So your second meeting of the month would be where you would deal with majority of your non-quasi-judicial things. So, we're still looking how to structure that, but that's the direction we received.
Thank you for that. With working group committee reports, the legacy project, well, I appreciate everybody's response over the last, kind of a quick turnaround last month to hear David Moore and his presentation, and with Black Main Street Initiative, and I think that was great. And we gave him some funding I think moving forward, he wants to come back and talk to us. I think, we'll have him come maybe next month, meetings, but that leads to, next meeting is the 14th, 2 weeks from now.
15th.
15th. I was going to suggest that if we were going to take a summer break, that would be a good one. We don't have anything else in our agenda except to have for the Legacy project to come back. So if I have no objections, I'd like to go ahead and cancel the next meeting and come back in person for our first meeting in August. To that. All right. Great. Moving along with that, the Sir Walter Raleigh Awards, we want to start getting that pumped up and getting people excited and here. So I think we'll look to have a first meeting with that here in a couple weeks. So I'd love to get lots of interest. We'll send out some emails maybe later. Pick a date and figure out a time where we can kind of kick that Sir Walter Raleigh this year. I want to make it a really good one. I think it'll be nice to get everybody, once we're all back together, get everybody excited about the Sir Walter Raleigh Awards again. Anything to add to that, Carter?
No, I think that's good. Yeah, I'll be happy to look for something after the July 4th holiday. We have kind of a handful of questions we need to answer and fill out the jury. So if you're interested in doing that, please let us know when we reach out. We'd love to have both experienced and new members on that. And then also, we initially had thought about not asking for sponsorships or donations, but I think that what we heard is that it's okay to reach out. So, I think we'll need some assistance in both finding nominations for the awards and financial and sponsorship assistance, and more to come on that.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, any other reports before we approve the minutes? Thoughts?
Corey, did you want to talk about elections?
Oh, yes. So elections will be, since I was going to bring that up at our next meeting, but since we aren't going to have our next meeting, let's go ahead and form a committee, or if there's a person that would maybe like to chair or take nominations for the next chair and vice chair of the commission. I think last time we just had a person that kind of took nominations and put it together and do that on a committee. Anybody like to be involved or kind of help handle that?
And just to give you some background, by the bylaws, you have your nominations and elections in August, and we typically ask a member to be the nominations person to kind of reach out to everyone and see if one they want to be nominated or they have a nomination for someone else, and then we usually bring that to that first meeting in August and kind of bring a slate. People can kind of take themselves off if they want. But then we go into the next meeting with the election, and still on the day of the election, if you want to nominate someone else or nominate yourself, that's still a possibility. But the bylaws state we go for a nominations committee or a person.
Yeah, I'd be happy to just send an email to the group and organize whatever I get back. And let me know if there's any other duties, but that sounds good.
That'd be fantastic. Really just reaching out to everybody on the group and see, if they have any specific nominations, or I guess if you get certain nominations, asking them if they would like to serve that role.
Corey, are there any term expirations coming up that should be considered in that? Or how long do the chair and co-chair serve for?
Yeah, so it's a 1-year term. Chair and co-chair. Candace is rolling off this year. There's some people that can re-up this year. I think she's the only one that's the third term that's actually rolling off.
And officers serve basically starting September 1st. That's the date.
Carla, can you remind me, does the chair, you don't have to, Corey, can you continue to be chair, or does it have to be different every time?
I believe I could continue to be chair.
You can, okay.
You can check your rules real quickly.
Yeah, you can serve multiple years. We've had a couple.
All right. Well, Jake, we appreciate you. Yeah, if you could take on that role, I'm happy to help out. If you tag team that or call me with questions, I'll be glad to help you out. Okay. Anything else? So I guess the question is, yeah, if we have nominations, we can either do it at our August 1st meeting. We could vote as early as our August 1st meeting, right? If we have it all together and in place. Or do we need
If you wanted to, it does specify August. I know just your docket is going to include 3 design alternates that day. Potential for discussion about the legacy project. So I'm not sure if you wanted to put that all on one. It's up to you, but it does specify August for the nominations and elections.
We'll see.
Yeah, it says during the regular August meeting, but you have 2. So I think you could, and they're both regular. So either one's fine.
Okay. All right. So let's see how it goes, Jake. And if we have it all together and it seems quick and easy, we can do it at the first meeting. All right. So approval of the meeting minutes. Has everybody reviewed the minutes?
Yes.
I've reviewed them actually this time, so I move to approve.
I'll second that.
It's a second from Chris. All in favor can state aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. There is no other comments, feedback. Move for adjournment.
Corey,
Things
I was going to add, the comments that were made during that review today about wanting to see more in the presentations, I think were really good conversation. To be able to see elevations, maybe sections, a grading plan, an auto turn for issues dealing with vehicle turning, I think are things that if the applicants don't have them, they border on us maybe not being able to approve their request. So maybe it's not anything that we can make mandatory, but I wonder if there's kind of a suggested list of documents that we can put together to give, and maybe we're already doing that, but it seems like some pretty simple stuff like that auto turn would have helped their case today. I'm surprised that they didn't include that.
That's a good point.
Thank you for saying that.
That's come up in a couple other cases, and then it would really essentially save them time, and then we don't have to feel bad pushing it off because, just maybe to know that they're speaking to a group of professionals who look at this type of drawing or who are experienced with this thing on a daily basis, and that we all bring different, perspectives or come from different disciplines, but I think to amp up what they need to show, because we're capable of deciphering that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even a plan of that lower level of the building to see where the loading dock even ends in the floor plan would have been nice to see versus a big gray block.
Yeah, and the reality is, that's made it so far in the planning. They have all that stuff. All they got to do is put it in there.
Oh, yeah.
So if we can, Carter or whoever, I don't know I appreciate you saying that, Chris. If we can just tell folks like, hey, put it all in there, put more than you need to in there so that we can look at it if we need to, because then, like you said, we get in a bind where we feel like we don't want to hold this up, but you really don't have enough information here.
Yeah, the more the better.
Yeah,
Carter, is that possible from like the requirement perspective or?
Kurt, I was thinking too, I mean, these, under the UDO, design alternates are required to be tied to a pending site plan. So you can't even submit for a design alternate until you've submitted for a site plan and gone through one cycle of plan review. So that is already on file. I think it's transferring it so that it gets into this file as well. You know, Carter, maybe you and I can talk a little bit too about how to communicate that to applicants, because it's ultimately the applicant's burden to put forth the evidence to meet the standard. However, I think it should be, if they already have that as part of their site plan application, I think it's beneficial to tell them the commission would like to see that. And maybe even we talk about whether with the staff's backup materials, you include the most current version of their site plan in the backup materials. Again, the burden should be on the applicant to do that. But assuming they provide us with the most recent and correct copy of that, I don't see why you couldn't put it in backup materials, perhaps. And I do think it was helpful to tell the applicant that would have been beneficial for you to see to approve the request. And I also want to make sure, I apologize, I was unclear at all about the standard, but what I was trying to say, you guys can go through the list like you do with the admin alternate. In fact, the standards are not required to legally, but I do think that's a good practice because it does help you think about some of these questions and give them feedback as well. Again, not a legal requirement, but it is a good practice. If you guys wanted to do that for these, you could.
We can definitely do that. At the minimum, having a link to the information, definitely encouraging applicants to put that information in there. If you recall that last administrative alternate with the bank at Cameron Village or Village District, where you all basically said we want to see elevations and we want to see a planting plan. And that's the direction staff gave them before the meeting. They decided not to do that, and they realized that they had to wait an extra meeting because y'all saw it. So that's something that we've consistently done with alternates over the years, is saying we have a good idea what the commission is going to say. So you probably want to include this, because even though it doesn't say you have to do it, you should. And we've had applicants that have heeded that advice and some that haven't, and they see what happens. So, but yeah, we can definitely guide applicants and include the information that we already have on file. So yes.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate all these comments because, yeah, I was a little bit torn with the lack of information today, and I don't necessarily want that to continue to happen. So if we could strongly recommend, because, you know, I mean, if they're going in for site plan, they are issuing building elevations as well, and there's plenty of other site information that we could see. It's all public record. There's no reason it shouldn't be somehow included, or, you know, maybe not necessarily part of the presentation, but it's available to review. We ask to see that, because I think we should be a little bit stronger with that. Sure. I appreciate all those comments, and Catherine, I appreciate that as well. I do think that we probably do need to go through the findings. I don't know that I was necessarily prepared as much today, but I did read through her and did read through the felt that those were met.
Yeah, and it's ultimately, I mean, they do have the burden to give you the evidence you need to meet those findings. And you can deny them if they don't, or you should deny them if they don't give you evidence to meet all the findings. You know, one thing I've seen too, I don't encourage this as a practice, but I have seen, you know, you kind of tell the applicant, if you want us to vote today, we do not have enough information to give you a yes. And it's always the applicant's choice if they want to go ahead and get a vote or if they want to continue the case for more information. But I think it is good to be honest and upfront with the applicant about, you know, I don't have enough here to meet the standard. You know, I think that's, if that's how you're feeling, and I like the, you know, telling them that before you give them a no too. that maybe you have that information, but it's not here today.
Thank you for that. Any other thoughts? That was a great conversation. I appreciate that.
That's a quick question. In this new process, I forget, can we approve with conditions?
Yes, thank you. I meant to say that a second ago too.
Okay.
You can impose conditions. The conditions are supposed to be tied to making the project conform to the standards. So it has to have some type of, rational basis or relationship to the standard. But yes, impose conditions. The applicant doesn't have to agree to them, as like with rezoning cases where it has to be in an agreement. You can definitely impose conditions. And if you ever need help crafting conditions with the BOA, for example, they usually impose conditions. I would say recently, at least one case, they have a lot more cases than you guys do, but we do them on the fly, which isn't always the best way to do them, but we can definitely do them that way. Sometimes applicants will come ready to propose their own condition as well. So, but yes.
So Catherine, an example from today might be that we have a restriction in, maybe on the types of trucks that could utilize that loading dock. That was something that we really focused on, and making sure that their tenant restrictions state that and continue to state that.
Yes, that's an acceptable condition. I usually like to ask staff on the line. I would ask probably Carter in that situation to make sure that when they come in for plan approval, that's enforceable the way we write it. But yes, that would be a good condition.
Yeah, it was similar to your administrative alternates when you crafted conditions, and staff was always saying, we need something measurable or something that the plan review staff can logically, administer.
Well, that's a lesson for me in remembering that we can craft these conditions and not just saying, well, I hope they do it, that we could have done that. I'll try and keep that in my mind.
I thought about mentioning it to you, but I seem to recall they said that they physically couldn't fit any other type of trucks in there. So anyway, but yes, that is a very good point.
Okay.
So kind of along with that, if they just state on the record that they're only going to have deliveries within certain hours, is that binding, or does it need to be part of do we need to make that part of our, motion?
If it is not a condition, it is not binding. If it's not a condition of disapproval or a UDO requirement, otherwise it is not binding.
Even though they're under oath at that time?
Yep, even though they're under oath. So, right. Yep.
Yeah, so we might have liked what he said today, but it may.
Because a lot of times they'll say things to get things passed through, and then, like, once it's passed through, they're like, oh, well, it's through. And they don't have to live here. We do.
And sometimes my experience has been that if you were to say to the applicant, you're telling us this, but if we made that a condition, would you be able to comply with it? Usually my experience has been, they'll say, oh yeah, if we had thought of that, we'll make it a condition. We're fine with that. I do like to ask whether or not they'd be able to comply with it, because that's always, realistically, I think that's a good question to ask the applicant. You don't have to get their consent for the condition, but it does help to know.
Thanks, Catherine. That's really helpful.
Yeah, I appreciate all the free schooling. Thank you.
I'm full of it. Let me know. I know it's the last Thursday before a long holiday, so I'm sure you probably don't want to talk about legal jargon.
And we had mentioned before that hopefully the second meeting in August, we're going to have kind of a training and refresher on this, because starting in September, that would be the first time you see the old administrative alternates come forward as design alternates. So that might be a good opportunity to kind of, like I said, refresh on that and ask questions. So we'll put that together for y'all.
Carter, did I hear that the next meeting on July 15th is not going to happen, or did I mishear that?
That's correct.
So August 5th would be the next meeting, and that would be in person in the council chambers.
Okay. Thanks.
Do we have to wear masks?
To see what happens at the time.
Because I would defer to Carter. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know. The Board of Adjustment would have, Carter, they would have met before Appearance Commission meets in person next.
They do, and that's one thing I want to do behind the scenes is get a good understanding of how this happens. Because one, we haven't done in-person meetings, so I kind of forgot how we did them anyways. But I need to figure out all the things that are going to change, like spacing and that sort of thing. So and that guidance can change. You know, I know that the council will discuss this at their next meeting about boards and commissions returning to in person. So we might have some more information coming out with part of that as well. But I'll definitely have everything we need by the first meeting.
Perfect.
And Carter, you remember how to use the pointer on the screen?
I think so. I think the biggest thing is having to wear pants all the time. So.
And on that note,
It's
all right,
no shirt,
y'all.
no shoes, no service. They don't say anything about pants.
That's right. All right, we're getting close to 6 o'clock. I appreciate everybody's time tonight, commitment. I think, you know, hopefully we've been a little bit of a lull here. We're trying new things. You know, I look forward to what we're going to see here in the future, and maybe some of these other items coming before us, like Carter was just mentioning in August. So I think, you know, I think there's some positive things ahead, and forward to, let's all keep in mind a couple weeks from now, if we can get together and maybe start looking at Sir Walter, the more the merrier. That'd be great if we could kind of all get together somewhere. So let's plan on that. I'll send out an email here. I appreciate you guys all hanging in there tonight, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye. Have a good holiday.
Good to
Thank
see you.
you.
Be safe.
Happy 4th.
Yeah.